You may have seen this picture before. In fact, both of those, because I'm kind of a supplier of photos for Les Hills Wild Ones. So you see them over and over again. But anyway, this house was featured as the December in the catalog of the Wild Ones. And I think it was 2014. We moved to that house in 2001, and whoops, start my video. Oh, okay. All right. What do I click to start the video?
You're good, Diane. We can see you now. So yeah, so you moved to that house in what year you said?
2001.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So anyway, in 1978, we were introduced to prairie. We had only been in Sioux City for 1 year. And before that, we had virtually no idea about prairie. And getting introduced to prairie connected us to native plants. And that's where the story starts, and it's ongoing. Native plants. And in 1984, we moved to a new house. And the first thing, it was a new old house. It was a very old house. We were so eager to do things, you know, in your new location, as Becky said, you know, and that's where I really got started with planting natives at that location. And when we moved in 2001, boy, I had a lot of space to plant natives. As you can see with the butterfly milkweed on the left, that is what that hill looked like that was out front of our new house. They had dumped a whole bunch of rocks. The hill was steep. It was southwest facing, so it doesn't get much more xeric than that. And so we call it a xeric garden. And on the upper right, you can see what that hillside looked like after a few years. And then gradually it got to be, you know, like the picture was that was on the calendar. And the penstemons in the middle, we started with a few, and I spread the seed, and they're usually a biennial, and so you can't depend upon them to come back and come back. But by spreading the seed, I had 50 last year. 50 last year along our lane. So you're going to see a lot of flowers here. And I have just loved having all of that hill to garden in, and also along our lane. It's just been wonderful. For example, the picture in the upper right, you know, has the grayhead coneflower. It has partridge pea. It has Canada wild rye. It has wild petunia. It has prickly poppy. And for the fall migration, of course, I have, I think, 5 different kinds of asters and some different kinds of goldenrods. And then the other 2 pictures are not in the fall, but the one in the middle at the top is germander, which allows some shade, and the monarda in the lower right is a really neat monarda, the small one, all natives. The blanket flower in the upper left, you can see these different kinds of leaves. That was Manzelia. I had a lot of Manzelias going for a while, but they didn't like the garden well enough because everything else kind of crowded them out, and I lost them, but that happens. Somehow or other, though, a couple years ago, one of them popped up in my vegetable garden. And so I let it grow, and it was just spectacular. It was huge. On the right, you can see how everything just naturalizes in my gardens. I just let them naturalize. And I like the colors and everything like that. You have the goldenrod, you have the blazing star, you have cardinal flower, you have baptisia, you have snow on the mountain, you know, all really close together. Now, these are pictures of my vegetable garden. I have 41 raised beds that are 8x4. So that keeps me very, very busy. Now, the picture on the left shows 4-point evening primrose, and it attracts our friend, Japanese beetles, like crazy. And so I can go to the garden and I can have some water with soap in it, in a bowl type thing, and just knock those in just so easily. I can also just squish them if I don't have a bowl handy. I have lots and lots of natives in the garden, but I also have zinnias and marigolds and cosmos and nasturtiums. Those are the main others. I mean, I just have stuff blooming in the garden all over the place all the time during the summer. Now, as far as shrubs, I don't have a picture of elderberry, but we have elderberry, wild plum, and lead plant galore because, you know, we live with, this is a native prairie and native edge and all that. So I've got those naturally. The oak tree on the right, we planted 8 or 10 years ago, and we just took off the deer protection last fall. And the other picture in the middle is New Jersey tea. And I planted that in the xeric garden, and it's done fine. It's still there. And you can see the rocks that were there when I first planted it. You can barely see the rocks anymore because everything is so overgrown. We had on this property in our native prairie, we had redroot, which is the cousin of this, of the New Jersey tea. This is one of the lessons I learned. This plant is called Blue Star. And if you listen to any of the programs from Missouri or from Kansas, they really recommend that. I don't think it's exactly the same species, but Blue Star, the picture on the right is what it looks like. And it blooms early in the spring. And that's its main claim to fame, is that it blooms early in the spring. Now, the problem is that I planted it amongst the rocks probably 17 years ago. Well, it gradually increased, but it was subtle. So I let it increase. But then last year, it was just thick in a large area, and I had to kill it. And the lesson learned is that it's not native here. It was out of its place, and it liked it here. And so you can never tell. It might like it too much if you put a plant that didn't really belong here. So I think that is it.